It feels like every day there's just more and more to know. Like how are you even supposed to keep up with it all?
Yeah, totally. It's information overload out there.
It really is. That's kind of why we're here, I guess, to help cut through all that noise, offer you a deep dive, a focused look.
So you can actually figure out what matters without spending hours and hours reading every single thing.
Exactly. And today we are diving into something that I think is super interesting, how researchers are starting to use ChatGPT in their work, like actual research and getting their work published.
Not just hype, practical stuff.
Right. We're going to be looking at a step-by-step guide from a 2023 issue of the Journal of Pediatric Pharmacology and Therapeutics.
Which, in this whole crazy, fast-moving AI world, is a pretty valuable snapshot of how these tools are being thought about in a research setting.
For sure. And just real quick, for anyone who's not totally familiar, ChatGPT is what's called a natural language processing model.
Basically, it's a computer program that's really good at understanding and using human language, like you and me talking right now.
Yeah. It was created by OpenAI and is built on what they call the GPT 3.5 architecture.
Essentially, it's been fed a huge, massive amount of text data. So it can pick up on patterns in language and predict what words are likely to come next. That's how it can generate text that sounds like a human wrote it and hold conversations that make sense.
So what we're going to do today is unpack how this ChatGPT thing can help streamline research, like maybe even make getting published easier and faster. And we're going to be looking at this step-by-step guide as we go. Let's dive in, shall we?
Let's dive.
All right, so you've done your research, you've got all your findings. Where do you even start?
Well, the guide starts with something pretty basic.
Yeah.
The title.
Right, gotta have a title.
And it highlights how ChatGPT can take your core research info, your topic, what you were trying to find out, how you did it, all that. And then it can suggest titles that are, well, punchy, like they catch the reader's eye.
That's cool. So it's like a brainstorming partner that's only job is to come up with the most impactful way to present your work.
Exactly. The guide mentions it can even give you multiple options for titles. That's got to be helpful.
Well, sure. It can help you hit just the right tone, the right focus.
Right. And it goes beyond just the title itself. The guide actually has an example where ChatGPT took the title, author info, and created an entire title page. Keywords, running title, the works.
Wow, that's efficient. Just feed it the info and boom, title page ready to go.
Sounds great. Right?
Yeah. And this is important. Here's where it gets interesting. And it's a crucial reminder that human oversight is still so important. The guide points out that in their example, ChatGPT messed up the author's email address.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, a tiny error. But it shows that even with AI, you can't just assume it's always right. It needs a human to double check. It's a powerful assistant, but not like an all-knowing robot.
Makes sense. So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You still need to be involved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so you got your title. What comes next?
The abstract, of course. That summary of your entire research.
Got to make it digestible.
Right. And the guide explains how ChatGPT can help make that abstract clear and engaging.
So it's like a super summarizer.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But the guide stresses how important the input is. If you only give it the title, sure, it can make an abstract. But the more information you give it, like ideally the whole paper, the better the abstract will be.
Makes sense. If you want a really good picture of your work in that abstract, you got to give the AI the whole picture.
Totally.
All right, let's talk about the intro. How can ChatGPT help researchers with that?
So the guide says you can give ChatGPT the key stuff you want in your introduction, like the background, why your research matters, the questions you're trying to answer. And then ChatGPT can take that and build a well-structured intro for you.
Wow, that's pretty helpful.
And it can even do more, according to the guide. Like, based on what you tell it, it can suggest keywords and even make a list of abbreviations for you.
That would save so much time.
Definitely. But like with the title page, the guide says you got to review and edit that intro. Make it your own,
Right. Make sure it really fits your research. Now let's talk about the literature review. Can ChatGPT help with that?
Well, it can give you a basic one, according to the guide.
Yeah.
But there are some limitations, like it might not have access to the most up-to-date research because of copyright stuff.
Oh, right. Research moves so fast these days.
And a good literature review means you really got to analyze all those sources.
Yeah.
Find trends, see where researchers disagree, see what's missing. And the guide suggests that ChatGPT might not be so great at that kind of deep analysis.
So it's not going to replace a human doing a thorough literature review.
Probably not. The guide actually says that ChatGPT is better at summarizing or creating introductions than doing deep dives into the literature.
Okay, so maybe not the best tool for that, but what about when you're just starting to figure out your methodology? Can it help there?
Yeah, the guide suggests it can be really helpful in those early stages, when you're brainstorming different approaches.
Like a sounding board for your ideas.
Exactly. You can talk through your research goals, different study designs, how you'll collect your data, all that. And because ChatGPT can understand what you're saying, it can offer suggestions based on all the research methods it knows about.
That's cool. It's like having a virtual research buddy to bounce ideas off of.
Right. And get this, the guide even mentions that ChatGPT can give you ideas just based on the title of your research.
Whoa. So you could literally just have the title and be like, okay, ChatGPT, how should I research this?
Pretty much. But again, and this is a big theme in the guide, you can't just blindly accept what it suggests. You got to think critically about it.
Right. Make sure it actually works for your research. Okay, this next part is super important. The guide is very clear about this. Do not use ChatGPT to make up data.
No faking results.
Exactly. The data has to be real. That's like research ethics 101.
Right. And ChatGPT isn't designed to analyze data like a statistician would. You can't do that.
Although the guide does mention that Microsoft is working on some AI stuff for Excel that could help with making charts and graphs, like an Excel Copilot.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's still in development, so we'll have to see how it works for actual data analysis. But for now, stick to the tried and true methods. All right, moving on to the discussion and conclusion. Can ChatGPT help with that?
It can. If you give it all your results, it can help generate that section.
So it can basically summarize the main findings.
Yeah, and connect the dots between them. But again, big caveat here. The guide says you absolutely have to edit this section carefully. There could be inaccuracies.
So it's more like a starting point, not the finished product.
Right. But it can also help you spot limitations in your study, discuss the bigger implications of your work, and even come up with ideas for future research.
That's actually pretty helpful. It can get you thinking more deeply about your findings, but still, gotta double check everything it says.
Definitely. Okay, let's talk about references. What's the guide say about ChatGPT and making bibliographies?
All right, so the guide says, based on the author's experience, don't rely on ChatGPT to create your references.
Oh, really? Why not?
Apparently, it can make citations, but they're often wrong.
Oh, so you end up spending more time fixing them than if you just did it yourself.
Exactly. But it can be useful for formatting. Like if you already have a list of references that are correct, ChatGPT can help you put them in the right style for different journals.
So it's a formatter, not a generator.
Exactly. Okay, the guide also has a whole section on the downsides of using ChatGPT for research, which is important to keep in mind.
Good point. What are some of the things it mentions?
Well, first off, ChatGPT doesn't have the same kind of specialized knowledge that human experts have. It's trained on a ton of general information, but it might not understand really niche or complex research topics as well.
Makes sense. It's a jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly. And another thing is that ChatGPT's responses can be inconsistent. Like, you might ask the same question in different ways and get different answers.
So you can't just trust that it's always going to be right, or that it's giving you the best answer every time.
Right. And you don't have total control over what it writes. Like, you can guide it, but it still does its own thing. So you might have to do a lot of editing to make it work for you.
So it's not a mind reader.
No. And another thing the guide mentions is that it would be really helpful if ChatGPT could tell you where it got its information from, like cite its sources.
Oh, like some other AI tools do.
Yeah, because right now you kind of have to take its word for it. And in research, that's not ideal. And finally, because ChatGPT is trained on so much stuff from the internet, there's a chance it might accidentally plagiarize.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, so you have to be really careful and check everything. The guide is really clear that the researcher is ultimately responsible for making sure the research is honest and accurate.
Makes sense. You can't just blame the AI if something's wrong.
So what are some of the best practices the guide recommends?
Well, first of all, always check your institution's policies, your lab's rules, and the journal's guidelines about using AI tools like ChatGPT.
Right. Got to make sure you're following the rules.
And be transparent. If you use ChatGPT, acknowledge it in your paper. Explain how you used it.
Full disclosure.
And of course, no making up data. The guide stresses that ChatGPT is good for summarizing, improving writing, and brainstorming, not for creating fake results.
So basically, use it responsibly. So big picture, what if we learned from this deep dive into using ChatGPT for research and publication?
It seems like ChatGPT has a lot of potential to help researchers. It can save time and effort at different stages, from brainstorming to actually writing the paper.
But there are definitely some things to watch out for. You can't just blindly trust it.
Definitely not. You have to be critical of everything it produces and make sure you're using it ethically.
It's a powerful tool, but it takes a smart and responsible human to use it right. So here's something for you to think about. As AI gets more and more advanced and involved in research, how will our definition of original research have to change? And how can we make sure that human judgment and ethics stay at the heart of scientific progress? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.